All the rhetoric surrounding the recent 30th anniversary of the Falklands War might give the impression of a city that does not welcome foreigners. But that is a long way from the truth. Buenos Aires is a city steeped in and immensely proud both of its dynamism and its history. For executives from abroad seeking a new experience, this seamless blend of the old and the new, opportunity and tradition, familiarity and discovery is key to the city's charm. After an economic crash in 2001, when Argentina defaulted on nearly $100 billion, the country has enjoyed strong economic growth, and that has opened up abundant prospects for foreigners seeking new beginnings. With its gorgeous architecture, its cafe culture and vibrant literary and artistic scene, the city that earned the nickname the Paris of the South is a wonderful destination for expats. They are drawn both by its ceaseless energy and its luxuriance in an old-fashioned pace of life, where there is time to sip coffee and shift down a gear or two. David Summerstein, a radio journalist and DJ, and his wife Lisa Lazenby, a health food store manager, came to Buenos Aires with their daughter Olivia in search of the big city life they don't have at home.
I took a leave of absence from my work at a public radio station in upstate New York, in the northern part of the United States. We wanted to go away as a family for a year to a Spanish-speaking country so that Olivia could learn Spanish and so that we could just be away from our little teeny rural lives and be in a big city. And so it came down to a big city in Latin America. So it was like either here or Santiago de Chile or Lima maybe, and we just thought it seemed like the best cultural opportunities and certainly the best public transportation of all those was Buenos Aires, and we had heard beautiful things about it, so we came.
Yeah. We were seeking music and art and parks, all these things that Buenos Aires was hitting the jackpot. Our whole experience here has been exact opposite of our lives, for better or for worse, in the North Country where we are. So being in walking distance from school, where we live at home in New York, is all driving. We've been able to go to the playgrounds, which we don't have playgrounds near where we live, and I don't know, everything has been different.
I mean, of course, the language is, a huge thing, and watching her brain, we really threw her into a Spanish-speaking school. It's not a bilingual school at all. And this was her first school experience, too. So she just rolled right into it, and watching her little brain just sort of figure out Spanish has really just been, I don't know, a dream come true, really.
They have fallen in love with Buenos Aires traditions, buying olives from a tiny stall that has been in the shopkeeper's family for generations, or soaking up some of the city's historic cafe culture, and they've learned to go with the flow.
There's a list of 60 cafes and bar notables that are the historic cafes of the city, and we've sort of taken it upon ourselves as a great way to get out and see the city is to go to all 60 and at least have a little cafe, have a little cafecito in each one, and sort of experience different neighborhoods and different places that we otherwise wouldn't get to. And all the stereotype that a lot of expats don't like about Argentina, like the lack of customer service, like having to wait in lines, those are the things that just exasperate people. Is I think it's like this sort of double-edged sword where you can say, the exact opposite is being a bad thing about the United States, and it teaches you lessons about just other ways to live. I think, we learn a lot to, sort of slow down and to not get so upset about, things not happening immediately, and finding a way to be creative in certain situations.
That is something that Maxine Swan, a novelist from the United States, values too.
I find it to be a very soothing place. I always notice when I come back from the States that I just relax in a different way. I feel it in my body, in my brain, everything. And I think that has to do with the lifestyle. It has to do with the Argentines. It has to do with feeling that ambition is not the most important thing to everyone. And on the other hand, I think this is such a vibrant city. certainly culturally vibrant, and definitely in literary terms. Precisely the literary world, unlike the literary world in New York, it's really not about money or marketing. It's really about the work. And I find that so exciting.
As a parent, her son is nearly 2, she finds Buenos Aires particularly welcoming.
There's something so open to children and babies. You go to a restaurant at 10, 11 at night, and there are babies all around, which it would not happen in New York. I mean, they wouldn't even be allowed to be there. You do not have to become someone else or live in any sort of segregated way if you have a baby, which I think is not true in the States. So I love that. My little boy comes to every morning. They take him behind the counter, he makes the coffee, he sort of has the run of this place, and that's absolutely fine with everyone.
It also provided the inspiration for her latest book, The Foreigners.
The novel is about Buenos Aires, and the impetus for the novel was to try to capture my love of Buenos Aires. And even this feeling of sort of rejuvenation that I felt when I moved here. Buenos Aires is one of the main characters in the book. There's something about surprise in Buenos Aires. I feel like so often you go to a door on the street, it's completely unremarkable, and then you step in and the space inside is sort of the last thing you expected. The other thing is I like the way there's this sort of combination of history and contemporary life, and it seems much more dynamic in a way, unlike somewhere else I lived, Paris, for example, where I felt like everything's kind of embalmed and there's this sort of untouchable feeling. Perhaps things are less preserved in a certain way, but they also are part of the daily life. I like that.
Michael Legg discovered Buenos Aires as a backpacker, just as the country was taking off again after its economic crisis. Looking for a change after being a management consultant in London, he moved to Buenos Aires with no strings attached, hoping to do something different.
And I'd always been fascinated by Argentina. And so it was interesting to come to a completely new country, culturally quite different. I'd always wanted to learn another language, so it was kind of an interesting challenge. After the collapse, coming to a country which had been through complete financial meltdown, after working in London, in the city which was fairly stable and ordered, was just an interesting change. And honestly, I didn't know what was going to happen, but I also had this slightly romantic idea that where there's chaos, there will be opportunities. And sort of came and stayed and stayed and stayed, and I'm still here now.
He did an MBA, then opened an organic and natural food restaurant in Delhi in 2007, pioneering a trend that was later to take off in earnest. Running a business has its pros and cons. Though the city was a cheap place to live when he arrived, inflation is now running at more than 20%, and government-imposed import bans make life tough for business owners.
Inflation is a complete nightmare. It's a huge cost. Prices change sometimes on an almost weekly basis. I think setting up any business in any country is a huge learning curve. This is my first business. Our startup costs, doing something similar in London, would have been much higher. I think would have been a much crueler place to start up this kind of business.
He says the April 2nd anniversary of Argentina's war with Britain over the Falklands, called Las Malvinas here, poses no problems for him in Buenos Aires.
It's clearly something which is very close to people's hearts. You can't get away from Las Malvinas at the moment. It's on every billboard, every news article. I saw the same in 2007 with the 25th anniversary. I think being a Brit in Argentina has probably more pluses than minuses. The Argentines and the Brits generally tend to get on very, very well, and it's a very welcoming place to be.
For expats, Buenos Aires is the jumping-off point for discovering a vast country, with pursuits from horse riding in the Andes to mountain trekking to visiting vineyards. But those who fall in love with Buenos Aires often find it hard to leave.